What if I told you that the most important stories are born not on the battlefield, but in the silence of a long night? These are the chronicles of forgotten paths and quiet hours by the fire. Tales held in an old witcher's memory and the travel notes of a lonely bard. Write in the comments what city you're from and what time it is for you. And now, get comfortable, close your eyes, and imagine you are sitting by the campfire. The story begins. Ever wondered what a witcher actually does when there's no terrifying monster lurking around the corner and their trusty sword is safely tucked away? Most of us, we picture them constantly on the road, clashing with beasts, maybe grabbing a quick meal by a crackling campfire. But there's a whole side to their lives that stays hidden, shrouded in a bit of mystery and the rich, earthy scent of herbs. I'm talking about alchemy. Today, we're actually going to take a journey right into the very heart of Kaer Morhen itself, that ancient fortress where time feels like it's barely moving, and we'll step inside Geralt of Rivia's personal laboratory. We're going to really understand how he spends those quiet evenings, slowly, meticulously, brewing the very elixirs that end up saving his life again and again. Just picture it with me for a moment. The ancient stone halls of Kaer Morhen. They're absolutely majestic, right? Stern, really, steeped in centuries of history. And the air there? It's just permeated with the smell of dust, dampness, something profoundly, indescribably old. But then, as you push through a heavy wooden door and step into the alchemical laboratory, the whole atmosphere shifts. Here, the air feels different. It's denser, richer. It's thick, with the powerful scent of dried herbs, the sharp bite of chemical reagents, a comforting warmth from steam, and this subtle, almost metallic tang that just whispers of magic. The light in here is dim, maybe coming from just a single oil lamp, its flame dancing softly, throwing these intricate, shifting shadows onto walls absolutely lined with beakers, retorts, and bundles of dried plants. Over in the corner, a small fire crackles quietly in the hearth, keeping the air warm, providing just the right amount of consistent heat for brewing those delicate potions. And right there, at the very heart of this scene, bent over a heavy, scarred oak table, stands Geralt himself. His movements, they're so fluid, so precise, and there's just not a trace of haste about them. You see, here, in the secluded safety of this fortress, far removed from the brutal chaos of the roads, the desperate cries of battle, he actually allows himself this rare luxury of being more than just a killing machine. He gets to be a craftsman, a truly thoughtful master of his trade. His expression? It's typically focused, intense, only occasionally breaking into a slight squint as his eyes zero in on another ingredient, examining it with incredible care. First things first, Geralt makes his way over to one of the walls, completely covered with bundles of dried herbs. They hang there in neat, organized rows, each one carefully tied, labeled with these cryptic markings in an ancient language that only a witcher would ever truly understand. Everything you could possibly imagine is here, from the common buckthorn, which is a staple in so many basic elixirs, all the way to the rarest, most incredibly poisonous plants, ones gathered only in the most remote, the most dangerous corners of the world. He runs his fingers so lightly over the dry stems, barely touching them, almost as if he's reading an invisible book of scents. His nose, you realize, it's like a separate, highly tuned instrument. capable of detecting the slightest nuances in aromas, instantly telling him if something's fresh or if it's perfectly dried. It's an intuition born of necessity. This particular evening, it's all about replenishing his core supplies. He specifically needs Swallow for that rapid wound healing and Cat for enhanced night vision. You know, just the classic, essential kit for a witcher who, let's be honest, never really knows what's going to jump out at him around the next bend in the path. He carefully plucks a few sprigs of wolfsbane, their dry leaves rustling softly under his strong fingers, and then a bunch of bindweed. Their aromas, they immediately start to mingle, creating this pungent, deeply earthy base that fills the air. Then, after a slight pause, just a breath, his hand reaches for a dried wyvern claw. Ah, yes, this is for Cat, designed to boost its potency. And finally, for Swallow, he selects several shimmering crystals of giant yarrow, meticulously wrapping them in a small piece of clean cloth. With his chosen ingredients in hand, Geralt returns to his heavy work table. The essential tools, you notice, are already laid out precisely. A heavy stone mortar and an equally heavy pestle, a whole set of measuring spoons, various glass flasks of all shapes and sizes, delicate retorts, and several empty dark glass vials. These aren't just random containers. No. These are tools that have witnessed countless brews, absorbed the very essence of thousands of herbs and countless monsters. Their surfaces might be a bit dull from age, but they are impeccably, clinically clean. Now, the truly meditative stage begins, the grinding. He picks up the first ingredient, those dry wolfsbane leaves. He carefully, almost reverently, places them into the mortar. The sound that echoes through the laboratory is a gentle, dry rustle, a soft scraping as the pestle methodically works the brittle leaves. Geralt isn't pressing with all his might. His movements are perfectly even, perfectly rhythmic, as if he's tapping out a slow, steady beat to some invisible, ancient music. The leaves steadily turn into a fine, powdery dust, releasing their earthy, slightly bitter aroma. This unique scent, it just fills your lungs, and somehow, it feels like it clears the mind. Next comes the bindweed. This one, it's a bit more fibrous, and grinding it definitely requires a bit more concentrated effort. The pestle strikes deeper, emitting this dull, satisfying thud, and the tough fibers are slowly, steadily ground down until they transform into a uniform, vibrant green paste. The smell of bindweed is sharper, with clear notes of freshly cut grass and a faint, almost surprising sweetness. Geralt inhales it, truly allowing the aroma to wash over him, to pass right through him. Each breath here isn't just breathing, it's a deep immersion in the process, a precious distraction from the heavy, worldly worries, from the relentless burden of a witcher's often brutal destiny. Then, the wyvern claws. This is, hands down, the hardest part. Geralt actually swaps out his pestle for a sharper, metallic one. The sound in the laboratory changes instantly. Now it's a distinct scrape and a sharp clink as the incredibly hard claw shatters, then grinds down into the finest, almost imperceptible dust. This powder, it carries a light, almost ethereal metallic aftertaste that adds a truly unique, subtle note to the future elixir. The Witcher, he never forgets that every single component, even the most seemingly insignificant speck, contributes its own essential part to the potion's ultimate power. Every molecule matters. Once all the dry ingredients are ground to their desired consistency, some to a fluffy, fine dust, others to a slightly coarser powder, or even a smooth paste, Geralt moves seamlessly onto the liquid components. He picks up several flasks, each one containing a murky, translucent liquid. Distilled water, of course, a solution of highly purified alcohol, and then several precious essences extracted from various parts of monsters he's slain. He meticulously measures the exact required amount of each liquid, using tiny pipettes and precisely marked graduated cylinders. In the laboratory, the only sound you hear is the gentle, almost musical splash of liquid transferring from one container to another. It's the quiet sound of purity, of perfect preparation. And now, the truly delicate work begins, mixing and heating. Geralt lights a small burner right there on his table. Its flame is small, yes, but remarkably steady, providing this perfect, even, controlled heat. He takes a round flask. It kind of resembles a small scientific aquarium, and he carefully pours all the ground powders into it. Then, so slowly, in a thin, continuous stream, he adds the precisely pre-measured liquids. As the very last drops fall into the flask, he begins to slowly, deliberately stir the mixture with a slender glass rod. At first, it's just a suspension, murky and opaque, not very inviting. But as Geralt continues to stir, and as the flask gradually warms over the steady flame, something truly amazing starts to happen. The mixture begins to slowly, almost invisibly change color. From that murky state, it becomes slightly more transparent, acquiring this delicate, almost luminous hue. This, he knows, is the undeniable sign that the ingredients are finally beginning to interact, that the subtle, powerful magic of alchemy is awakening within the brew. A barely visible wisp of vapor rises from the flask, carrying with it the full, complex palette of scents, the deep, earthy notes of the herbs, the sharp, clean smell of alcohol, the faint, almost sweet aroma of some unknown flower, and that thin, unmistakable metallic tang that could only come from a monster part. All of this, it blends into a single, utterly unique aroma, an aroma which for a witcher is as profoundly familiar and as strangely comforting as the smell of freshly baked bread is for an ordinary person. This distinct scent, it permeates the ancient stone walls of the laboratory, settling on the shelves, clinging to the tools, even soaking into Geralt's clothes. It is the very smell of his craft, the essence of his survival. He watches the temperature like a hawk, constantly adjusting the burner's flame with the slightest twitch of his fingers. Too hot, he knows, and the precious elixir will be utterly spoiled, useless. Too cold, and the components simply won't fully dissolve and react, their potential wasted. This requires not just vast knowledge, but a deep, innate intuition, something acquired only over long, painstaking years of practice. The Witcher, he feels the heat emanating from the flask. He senses how the very resistance of the liquid changes beneath his stirring rod. This is slow preparation, demanding patience, absolute focus, and an almost profoundly meditative state. And then, when the temperature hits just the right point, and the mixture finally acquires that perfect uniform appearance, Geralt takes a second flask, this one connected to the first by a delicate glass tube. This is his distillation apparatus. He carefully transfers part of the potion into it for further purification. The distillation process here, it happens so slowly, drop by precious drop. Honestly, this is probably the most mesmerizing part of the whole operation. Thousands of tiny bubbles rise from the bottom of the first flask, burst gently on the surface, and then the vapor condenses, flowing steadily into the receiving flask. The sound? It's a quiet, rhythmic bubbling, like the very heartbeat of the laboratory itself. Drop by drop, the pure elixir collects, becoming more transparent, more incredibly concentrated with every passing moment. While distillation is happening, Geralt isn't just sitting idle. Oh no! He uses this time so efficiently, perhaps to prepare a second batch of potions, or maybe to meticulously clean the mortars and flasks he's already used. Cleanliness, you see, it's an absolutely integral part of alchemy. Any tiny residue from old ingredients could easily spoil an entire new brew. His movements throughout this entire process remain calm, measured, almost ritualistic. He clearly finds deep satisfaction in this continuous cycle. Gathering, grinding, mixing, brewing, purifying, bottling. It's his rhythm. Hours tick by slowly in this secluded space. You barely even notice time passing. But for the Witcher, time here truly flows differently. It becomes part of the process itself. Not something to be rushed, but something to be respected, almost revered. In these rare moments, he isn't Geralt of Rivia, the White Wolf, the famed slayer of monsters. He is simply an alchemist, deeply focused on his work, completely immersed in a secret world of smells, sounds, and these subtle, intricate chemical reactions. When the elixir in the receiving flask finally reaches the necessary volume and that pristine purity, Geralt carefully removes it from the apparatus. The finished swallow potion, you notice, now has this beautiful, amber, almost golden hue, and the cat potion is a deep, inky violet. Both are perfectly transparent, and they sparkle in the lamplight as if they've somehow captured a tiny piece of the starry night sky. He takes a deep breath, inhaling the final aroma. It has become softer, much more complex. The harshness of the raw ingredients gone, replaced now by a truly concentrated, potent power. The very last stage is bottling. Geralt picks up the empty dark glass vials, their shapes painfully familiar in his hands, their stoppers perfectly, tightly fitted. He uses a small funnel to carefully transfer the finished elixirs into these vials. Not a single drop should be spilled, not one. Each potion represents long, painstaking hours of work, and sometimes incredibly dangerous searches for those rare ingredients. The vials are filled one by one, and soon, several bottles of Swallow and Cat are ready to take their rightful place in his trusty Witcher's satchel. He carefully seals each vial, making absolutely sure the stopper sits tightly, securely, so the potion doesn't evaporate or lose even a shred of its precious potency. Then, he takes a small, clean cloth and gently wipes the outside of each vial, removing any slight drips or stray fingerprints. This isn't just perfectionism, you realize. It's a profound respect for the process itself and for what he has painstakingly created. Having finished the bottling, Geralt naturally begins to clean up his workspace. He meticulously washes the flasks and retorts, wipes down the heavy table until it gleams, and returns all the dried herbs to their proper places on the wall. The laboratory gradually regains its usual, somewhat stark, but impeccably orderly appearance. Only the air remains, still deeply saturated with that lingering scent of herbs and magic, a powerful, quiet reminder of the evening that has just passed. When the last flask is placed back on its shelf, and the small fire in the hearth begins to die down to embers, Geralt finally straightens up. There's no weariness on his face, surprisingly, but rather a deep, palpable sense of satisfaction. He's spent the evening not chasing down monsters, not dealing with noisy, often dangerous taverns, but instead in quiet, solitary concentration. There's something truly primal and deeply personal about this whole process for him. It's Geralt's own unique way of restoring balance, of grounding himself, of remembering that even in a world consumed by chaos and cruelty, there is still room, a very important place, for order, for creation, and for a profound sense of tranquility. Alchemy, for a witcher, isn't just some random set of chemical reactions. It is, quite literally, the art of survival, a fundamental science that allows him to stand his ground against forces far, far superior to any ordinary human. But beyond that, for Geralt, it is also a deep, essential form of meditation. In every smooth movement of the pestle, in every tiny bubble rising from the bottom of the flask, in every slow breath of that saturated air, there is a profound peace. It's a precious moment when Geralt can simply be a craftsman, a creator, not the eternally battling, often weary White Wolf. So, the next time you imagine a witcher, try to remember not only his gleaming swords and his powerful signs. Try to imagine him in this ancient laboratory, bent over a gently boiling flask, inhaling those complex aromas of herbs and magic. Imagine his hands, equally adept at holding a heavy steel blade and a fragile glass retort. You see, it's in such quiet evenings, far away from the world's clamor and noise, that witchers truly hone their essential craft, preserve their incredible strength, and prepare themselves for the new trials that surely, inevitably, await them on tomorrow's path. And in this slow, thoughtful preparation of elixirs, in this evening ritual of alchemy, lies not only their immense power, but also their utterly unique, inimitable magic. Don't forget to hit that like button. If you enjoyed this glimpse into Witcher life, subscribe for more deep dives into the lore, and let me know in the comments what other hidden aspects of the Witcher world you'd love for us to explore next. Imagine an ingredient capable of altering the course of history, curing the most incurable ailments, erasing the ravages of time, or even, as legends whisper, granting true immortality unbound by the torments of eternal existence. Sounds like something born from the wildest fantasy, doesn't it? Yet, in a world where ancient magic is not merely a relic of the past, but a living, pulsating reality, such wonders not only exist, but await their discoverers. Today, I invite you to the very heart of one such legend, on an expedition that will lead us along the razor's edge of the unknown, on the quest for the fabled Moonflower. This flower is not just a rare botanical marvel known only to a select few, to secret societies and masters of magic. It is, in essence, an alchemical holy grail, pulsating with the purest life force and cosmic energy gathered from the very ether. Its translucent, almost invisible petals, as ancient grimoires claim, are capable of capturing and forever preserving the first, purest, most pristine rays of the rising sun, transforming them into something truly unimaginable, accessible only for the most intricate magical rituals. But to find it is an endeavor demanding not only exceptional endurance, but also profound knowledge and remarkable courage. For the Moonflower blossoms only on sky-high peaks, in the briefest moment of dawn, and only on Dragon's Tooth Peak, the most inaccessible, the most mysterious, and the most mystical mountain in the known world. Its spires soar into the heavens, sharp as the fangs of some prehistoric slumbering dragon, and its slopes are eternally shrouded not only by icy winds, but by ancient, subtle mysteries, accessible only to those who dare to challenge its majesty. My preparation for this expedition began long before the first rays of sun touched my face at the base of this colossal mountain. It lasted for months, if not years, and each day was dedicated to studying ancient maps, faded folios, and rechecking alchemical formulas. There was no bustling team, no grand send-off, or theatrical heroism. Only me, my thoughts, my carefully selected tools, and the ancient, subtle magic that had always been with me, unseen but deeply felt, like a second, stronger heart beating in unison with my own. This magic did not allow me to soar into the sky on the wings of the wind. No, it merely sharpened my senses to an incredible degree, softened excruciating fatigue, and protected me from paralyzing frostbite. It was more like an invisible shield, enveloping me in a light cocoon, and an inner source of inexhaustible strength, rather than a means of covering distances. It made the possible a little, barely noticeably, more attainable, but by no means robbed the path of its natural harsh trials. It was an honest test of myself and the mountain. As the sun, like a giant smoldering ember, dipped below the horizon, painting the western sky in the last, incredibly rich purple and orange hues, we reached the lower camp, nestled right at the base, where the zone of eternal snows begins. It wasn't exactly a camp, more like a small but reliably sheltered ledge from the fierce winds, where one could spend a few short, almost agonizing hours in a semblance of sleep before beginning the final, most challenging ascent. Nights here, in the mountains, especially at such an altitude, are truly cold, deep, and primitive. The stars seem brighter than anywhere else, each point of light as if burning with an individual flame, scattered across the coal-black velvet of the heavens like countless faceted diamonds. The silence was absolute, so all-encompassing that my ears rang, and it was interrupted only by the rare, almost inaudible whistle of the wind, which sometimes penetrated through the crevices, like the invisible whisper of ancient, long-forgotten spirits telling their secrets. For the 100th time, I checked every detail of my equipment. Hermetic alchemical ampules, specially prepared to collect the flower and preserve its ethereal substance. Gloves of enchanted leather, resistant to any frostbite. Protective goggles to avoid being blinded by the dazzling, almost magical brilliance of the snow at dawn. And of course, my amulet, a modest-looking, unprocessed stone that hung on my chest and radiated that soft, pulsating warmth I had already mentioned. It wasn't just a protective charm. It was my invisible, ever-present companion, pulsating in sync with my vital forces. Shortly after midnight, when the moon, like a crescent silver shield, was already declining to the west, painting the snow in ghostly cold hues, we began the ascent. The sky was still deep, inky, but in the east, a faint, almost ghostly glow was already discernible. It was that long-awaited harbinger of dawn, for which I had traveled thousands of miles. Each step was maximally deliberate, precise, rhythmic, part of some ancient dance with the mountain. My boots, specially designed for such impossible snow-covered peaks, made a dull but clear crunching sound with each plunge into the deep, untouched snow. Crunch, crunch, crunch. This monotonous sound was the only pulse in this vast, silent, as if time-frozen world. The temperature dropped lower and lower, penetrating to the bone, and my lungs felt every gulp of the thin, sharp, icy air. It was so incredibly clean, so transparent, that it seemed as if it not only filled the lungs, but cleansed every cell of the body, sharpening perception to an incredible, almost painful acuteness. I felt every sharp stone beneath the thick snow, every uneven projection my hands gripped, every gust of wind penetrating through the densest layers of clothing. It was a test of strength that I accepted with dignity. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, but with irresistible force, the dark, velvety sky began to lighten. The blue became deeper and deeper, transitioning from inky to deep indigo, then to rich ultramarine, and then to incredible watercolor-like shades of violet and delicate pink. The horizon was painted in soft pastel tones that grew brighter with each passing minute, foretelling the imminent, triumphant appearance of the sun. With each meter gained above sea level, the panorama below expanded, revealing new silent, snow-covered valleys, deep, yawning gorges, and other, lower, but no less majestic peaks, which now seemed almost toy-like, miniature copies of those towering around me. I was so high that the light, feathery clouds floated not above, but significantly below me, like cotton rivers slowly flowing through bottomless abysses and time-frozen seas. It was a feeling of absolute solitude and complete unity with this grandiose world. My gaze was constantly fixed on the east, on the place where the sky was about to burst into the first golden light. It was there, at a strictly defined altitude, on special, barely visible ledges, protected from constant winds and icing, that according to ancient treatises, the Moonflower blossoms. I was not walking blindly, wandering in search, but moving along strictly calibrated coordinates, which were the result of years of painstaking research and careful study of ancient, half-erased maps stored in the most secretive archives. The magic of my amulet, pulsating on my chest, gently but surely guided me, creating a light, almost imperceptible pull to the desired point, as if an invisible thread was pulling me upward, not allowing me to stray for a moment in this snowy labyrinth. My heart pounded in my chest, not only from the exhausting physical exertion, but also from the growing, almost painful anticipation. How many generations of alchemists, brave adventurers, and mage scholars had dreamed of this moment? How many of them had given their lives in these icy expanses, never reaching their cherished goal, dissolving into the silence of eternal ice? And then finally, what I had come all this way for happened. The first dazzling ray of sun, like a fiery blade, pierced the horizon, tearing through the remnants of night's darkness. It was not just a glow, but a true explosion of light, painting everything around in dazzling golden, crimson, and orange tones. The snow on the peaks sparkled with billions of tiny living diamonds, shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow, and the shadows cast by the giant peaks instantly lengthened, creating a surreal, almost unreal landscape, as if I had stepped into a painting by a great master. And at that very moment, literally a few meters from me, on a small but reliably protected from the biting wind ledge that I had almost walked past, I saw it. The Moonflower. It was not as I had imagined, not huge and flashy, not majestic like a mythical phoenix, but rather incredibly delicate, tremulous, and fragile, as if woven from pure light. Its petals had a pearly white hue, almost transparent, but in this sacred moment, they seemed to absorb the first, purest rays of the sun, and the flower glowed from within with a soft, pulsating silvery blue luminescence. It was as if it were made of frozen moonlight mixed with morning dew, or was the very embodiment of dawn. The petals slowly, smoothly unfolded like a living, breathing creature, greeting the sunrise that gave it strength. It was truly a magical, almost unearthly sight that took my breath away and brought tears to my eyes. Its scent was barely perceptible, but incredibly pure and fresh, with light notes of ozone and something that could be described as pure, concentrated living energy emanating from the very heart of the earth. I carefully, extremely slowly, knelt down, focusing completely, without reservation, on the flower. My movements were not just slow, but measured, almost ritualistic, so that not the slightest careless movement would damage any of the precious petals, which seemed incredibly fragile. The amulet on my neck glowed a little brighter. Its warmth became more palpable, helping me maintain absolute concentration and protecting me from the bone-chilling cold that still lingered in the air. I needed to collect the flower whole, without damaging its delicate, complex structure. Otherwise, its priceless alchemical properties could be irrevocably lost, and all my efforts would have been in vain. This was not just a collection, it was more like a delicate surgical process, requiring the precision of a jeweler and the patience of a master. I took out thin, elegant tweezers with runic engravings and a small crystal flask covered with ancient runic symbols and incantations from a special, moisture-proof case. These were meant to preserve its glow and magic, protecting it from external influences. Every tiny petal, every stamen, every hair on the stem, everything was vitally important. Nothing could be missed. With trembling but incredibly precise fingers, due to excitement and piercing cold, I carefully, millimeter by millimeter, detached the flower from its roots, which, despite their apparent fragility, grew deeply and firmly into the frozen, rocky soil. I had to be incredibly fast, for time was against me, but at the same time, remain extremely gentle and careful. Every lost moment meant a potential loss of that pristine magic, which gradually fades after the sun rises higher in the sky. The flower's glow became brighter and brighter, reaching its peak when the sun fully appeared above the horizon. And then, as the sun's rays became stronger and harsher, it began to slowly, almost imperceptibly, dim, as if it was giving up its power, entering a sleep. This was my only, unique chance, and I could not miss it. I felt the flower's energy pulsating in my hands, penetrating even through thick gloves. It was a living, breathing miracle, contained within this fragile plant. Finally, with utmost, bordering on reverence, caution, the Moonflower was placed into the specially prepared crystal flask. As soon as the hermetically sealed lid closed, its glow stabilized, becoming constant but less intense, as if it had fallen into a deep sleep, awaiting its hour to surrender all its power in the alchemical crucible. I took a deep, cleansing breath, allowing the thin air to fill my lungs to the very bottom. A feeling of relief, mixed with incredible triumph, filled me to the brim. All those long days of travel, all the sleepless nights spent waiting, all this exhausting climb that seemed endless, all of it paid off in this single, unique, sacred moment. I remained on the summit for a few more minutes, allowing myself the luxury of simply watching the sun rise higher, bathing the entire world around in golden, triumphant light. The panorama around was immense and majestic, stretching to the very horizon, dissolving into a light haze. I was alone at the top of the world, with the most valuable treasure imaginable held in my palm. The wind ruffled my hair like the gentle hand of an ancient spirit, but the biting cold no longer felt so sharp. It dissolved in the warmth of triumph. My soul was full of light and inexpressible joy. This was not just the completion, of an extremely difficult mission. It was a true transformation, deeply uplifting the spirit. The descent from Dragon's Tooth Peak was, of course, easier than the ascent, but it still required no less, and sometimes even more, caution, for the way down always holds its hidden dangers. Each step down was accompanied by the same dull, rhythmic crunch of snow under my boots, but now it sounded not like a monotonous kilometer counter, but like a triumphant song of victory, echoing through the silent gorges. The sun had already fully risen, and the mountains around seemed not just rocks, but shining, dazzling sculptures created by the hand of a great artist. The Moonflower, securely sheltered in its crystal flask, glowed softly but steadily, reminding me of our incredible adventure, of every obstacle overcome, of every drop of sweat and every breath. This was not merely the acquisition of a rare alchemical ingredient. It was an immersion into the very essence of nature, into its ancient, unfathomable mysteries, into its silent but powerful, all-pervading presence. This expedition, this grand trek to Dragon's Tooth Peak, taught me much more than just the art of finding and collecting rare artifacts. It taught me the profound value of absolute silence, unyielding endurance, and focus that allows one to ignore pain and fatigue. It showed that true, most powerful magic often lies not in spectacular, showy spells or loud rituals, but in subtle harmony with the surrounding world, in the ability to feel its pulse, its breath, in boundless patience and deep, sincere respect for its eternal mysteries. The Moonflower is now mine, but the priceless, truly inexhaustible treasure was the journey itself. Every step of it, every piercing breath of thin air, every dazzling ray of the rising sun that illuminated my path to this true wonder. I return, carrying not only the rarest alchemical ingredient capable of changing the world, but also deep wisdom gifted to me by this great, silent mountain. And remember, friends, sometimes the greatest treasure awaits you where no one looks, where only the bravest dare to tread, leaving behind the hustle and bustle of civilization. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more adventures, and leave a comment below telling me what mystical artifact you would seek. Have you ever really stopped to consider what memory actually is? I mean, beyond just a jumble of old facts or dusty images in your head. Think about it. Isn't it something far more profound? Something almost physical that settles deep in your soul? A weight? Yes, but often a precious one, molding every line on your face, etching every scar onto your very being. For those who've walked this earth for what feels like an eternity, who've witnessed far too much, memory often becomes their sole companion, their only solace in the longest, darkest nights. Up here, the mountain air, it just pierced him, seared his lungs with a freshness that carried the sharp scent of pines and that faint, unmistakable smell of distant melting snow. Underneath his worn boots, dry moss and those sparse fallen needles gave way with a soft, almost reverent crunch. Vesemir moved slowly, deliberately, a silent shadow. It was as if the very ground beneath him held its breath, unwilling to disrupt his profound quiet. This path, you see, he'd walked it hundreds of times, thousands maybe, over countless decades. Yet somehow, each time felt uniquely new, each step steeped in an ever-deepening melancholy. Overhead, the stars were just scattered like diamond dust, thrown across the heaven's velvet canvas. They shimmered with such a serene, almost mocking detachment, didn't they? It was as if they'd seen absolutely everything unfold beneath their cold, indifferent gaze. From the slow, ancient birth of mountains to the very last, ragged breaths of the bravest warriors. And nothing could ever disturb their eternal, unwavering calm. He was nearing that one specific spot, the place that had become, for him, a silent temple. His own private sanctuary, you could say, in this vast, often uncaring world. There it was, tucked away in a small clearing, almost blending right into the ancient spruces. An old, incredibly gnarled tree. It was so unusual, so ancient, it felt almost mystical, like something carved straight out of stone. Its thick trunk, a tapestry of deep cracks, its branches reaching skyward like crooked, ancient fingers. This wasn't just any tree, you understand? This was the memorial. A memorial not shaped by human hands. No. This was forged by time itself, by memory, a living, breathing embodiment of all the lives that had passed. And on its mighty branches, where leaves surely once flourished, now hung these medallions. Dozens, maybe even hundreds of them. Each one, a school of the wolf medallion, dulled, scratched, with that unmistakable wolf's head etched right into the metal. Every single one was a silent testament to a life cut tragically short. A life lived, endured, under a sign that was both cursed and, somehow, absolutely necessary. In that dim starlight, they seemed to shimmer, almost like ghostly eyes, reflecting tiny, fleeting sparks of celestial fire. The only sound daring to break the profound, absolute silence was a metallic whisper, a faint, almost ethereal chime, as the soft, light breeze drifted through the branches, gently swaying them. It wasn't just noise. It felt like the very voice of the past. A collective sigh, really, from all those who had fallen, defending a world that, ironically, so very rarely remembered their immense sacrifices. Vesemir stopped, right at the base of that ancient tree. His old, weary eyes drifted across the medallions, pausing here and there, recalling, just recalling, the faces that belonged to them. He reached out, gently, his fingertips brushing the cold, rough surface of one. This one, he remembered, belonged to a young man, a boy really, who just hadn't survived the trial of the grasses. His last cry, his final desperate convulsion. It lived in Vesemir's memory, as vividly as if it had happened only yesterday. And this other one, slightly scarred, that was his student's. The one who fell battling a monstrous warrior Kikimora, defending a village that, in the end, still cursed his kind. And look, right here, another one. This belonged to a man who was almost a brother to him, fallen on a battlefield in a fight they both knew was unwinnable. But they faced it anyway, didn't they? Because that was their duty, their solemn, unwavering duty. He knelt, slowly. His joints protested with a quiet, familiar creak, but he paid it absolutely no mind. The cold, hard earth beneath him seeped right through his thick trousers, yet he didn't feel that either. All of his focus was zeroed in on the profound purpose that had brought him here, to this remote, solitary dwelling place of memories. He reached out, his hand unerring, and selected one of the medallions. This one wasn't tied to any specific name. It was just one of the many hanging there, a symbol for all the fallen. Dull, almost black, from time's relentless march and heavy oxidation, its outline was barely visible. From his travel pouch, Vesemir carefully drew out a small piece of leather. It was soft, worn suede, likely once part of an old gauntlet of his. Then he took out a tiny vial. Inside, an oily solution, one he kept specifically for this particular ritual. It was a unique mixture, a blend of special herbs and grease, something he'd learned about years ago from an ancient druid, specifically for polishing metals. Slowly, with an almost reverent meticulousness, he applied just a few drops of that solution onto the medallion's dark surface. His fingers, old and wrinkled, yet still so accustomed to gripping a sword hilt or tough leather, carefully, deliberately gripped the cold metal. And just like that, his quiet, sorrowful dance began. With slow, rhythmic circular motions, he started rubbing that solution into the medallion, gradually, patiently, removing layers of accumulated dirt and heavy oxidation. Every single stroke, every single touch, felt utterly imbued with meaning. It was part meditation, part his very personal, very private dialogue with a past that never truly leaves him. The metal, beneath his worn fingers, slowly, steadily, began to come alive. That dull, stubborn blackness started to recede, giving way to its true, original silvery luster. And that wolf's head, etched so deeply onto the surface, it seemed to grow clearer, sharper, more expressive, almost as if the beast depicted on the medallion was slowly, deliberately stirring from a long slumber. You know, there was something so profoundly symbolic in this entire act. By polishing that metal, Vesemir wasn't just cleaning a piece of tarnished silver. No, he was, in a way, polishing his own memories, wasn't he? Cleansing them of the accumulating dust of oblivion, restoring their former sharpness, their vibrant brilliance. He wasn't, you see, trying to escape the pain. Not at all. He embraced it, allowed it to become an intrinsic part of him, an undeniable part of his story. Witchers, by their very nature, are solitary beings, yet paradoxically, they're simultaneously bound by these invisible, incredibly strong threads of brotherhood. Threads woven from the blood, shed side by side, from the raw, booming laughter that echoed through their makeshift camps, and from that unique, silent understanding that only another Witcher, truly, could ever fully grasp. As that medallion truly began to shine, images, vivid and potent, surged through Vesemir's memory. Not always individual, crystal-clear recollections. No, more like powerful flashbacks, a veritable whirlwind of emotions, of raw sensations. He saw the eyes of his brethren, eyes often full of weariness, yes, but always, always unfailingly resolute. He heard their voices, rough-hewn perhaps, but so full of warmth in those rare, precious moments of respite. He felt the cold sweat of fear, just before an inevitable fight, and then that searing, hot rush of adrenaline during the thick of battle. Oh, he remembered their laughter, their crude jokes, their endless arguments over who could chug a barrel of ale faster, or who'd taken down more monsters in a single week. He remembered how they'd share the very last tough piece of dried meat during those lean, desperate times, how they'd support each other, physically and emotionally, after particularly savage wounds, how they'd simply nod, silently, in deep, unspoken respect for each other's grim, chosen path. Every single Witcher of the School of the Wolf, despite being utterly unique individuals, carried within them the undeniable echoes of all who came before. They weren't just separate entities. They were a single thread in this vast, intricately woven network. A network forged from shared pain, immense sacrifice, and unshakable loyalty. And Vesemir, being the oldest of them all, was, in essence, the guardian of this entire network. He was the very last thread that hadn't yet snapped. You see, still connecting the profound past to the tenuous present. The sheer weight of this burden, it sometimes felt utterly unbearable. To be the last of his kind meant shouldering all the sorrow, all the losses, all the unfulfilled hopes. But it also meant something else, didn't it? It meant being a living, breathing bridge between worlds, between all those who had departed, and those rare, precious few who might, just might, yet come. He finally finished polishing the medallion, and now it just gleamed in the starlight, reflecting its cold, unwavering radiance. That wolf's head, oh, it looked as if it was about to physically break free from the surface and unleash a silent, yet incredibly fierce howl. Vesemir carefully, gently, hung it back on the branch, right there, next to the others, the slightly duller ones, patiently awaiting their turn. He then ran his hand across them all, touching each one individually, almost as if saying a quiet goodbye, or perhaps conversely, greeting them anew in this profound, silent dialogue that spanned across time. The wind, it picked up then, sweeping through those ancient branches. And now, the chime of the medallions grew louder, clearer, a distinct, melodious sound. It wasn't a mournful wail, not at all. It was more like a quiet collective song, a chorus of voices blending into one harmonious tune. A song of duty, yes, of immense sacrifice, and of an eternal, tireless wandering. A testament to how, even after death, a witcher doesn't just vanish without a trace. Their memory lingers, their actions resonate, and their legacy lives on, vibrantly, in those who still choose to remember. And this legacy, this almost invisible yet incredibly strong thread, it connected Vesemir to each and every one of them, giving him the unique, enduring strength to continue his own arduous journey. The sky overhead, it stretched out, seemingly endless, absolutely brimming with both profound mysteries and a chilling indifference. Yet paradoxically, as he gazed at it, Vesemir felt this deep, undeniable connection to all of existence. Witchers, they're much like stars themselves. They appear, they burn brightly, and then, eventually, they disappear. But their light, their influence, it always, always remains. He was, truly, a vital part of this eternal cycle, a single poignant note in this grand, silent symphony of being. He slowly rose to his feet. His old bones, predictably, gave another quiet creak. He took a deep, deliberate breath, filling his lungs with that icy, incredibly clean air. And he felt it then, didn't he? That this air wasn't just cleansing his body, but somehow his very soul. The bitterness of his immense loss, it hadn't magically vanished. No. But now, it was blended, beautifully, with a quiet acceptance, a profound sense of peace. He had performed his ritual. He had honored the memory. And now, he truly could, move on, knowing, deep down, that his brothers, those fallen in brutal battle, those lost to the creeping tendrils of oblivion, or those simply dissolved into the silent mists of the past, they would always, always be with him. Their medallions, whether still dull or now shining bright, they remained the silent, enduring witnesses to their lives. And Vesemir, he was their eternal, unwavering guardian. He cast one final lingering glance at that magnificent memorial tree. In the soft starlight, it seemed even more majestic, somehow even more profoundly alive. You see, every single medallion on its branches wasn't just a cold piece of metal. No, each one represented a drop of bloodshed, a fragment of a soul, an echo of hearty laughter, and yes, a pained groan. They weren't just tokens. They were anchors, firmly holding him in this often unforgiving world, constantly reminding him of exactly who he was and precisely what he still fought for. The breeze stirred the branches again, a gentle sigh, and that delicate, melodic chime of the medallions. It echoed now, resonating through the hushed night woods, like the softest whisper of the departed. It wasn't a mournful farewell, you realize. It was, rather, a powerful promise. A promise of memory, enduring and unbroken. A promise that as long as even one Witcher drew breath, the school of the wolf would absolutely endure. And as long as Vesemir himself breathed, as long as his old heart continued its steady beat, he would bear this memory, this immense burden, this sacred gift. He would guard them all, always. No matter how many more countless nights he spent beneath that sprawling, starry sky, he would return here, again and again, to his fallen brothers, to this ancient tree that had truly become their eternal home. And each and every time, he would tenderly polish their medallions, wiping away the encroaching dust of oblivion, meticulously restoring their original bright luster. And in doing so, he would keep the flame of their memory burning fiercely, ensuring it would never, ever fade in this vast, often cold, unyielding world. Night then slowly began to yield, giving way to the very first, barely perceptible glimmers of dawn appearing in the eastern sky. The heavens started to lighten, and the countless stars, one by one, slowly faded, dissolving into the soft, pre-dawn mist. Vesemir turned, and just as silently, as effortlessly as he had arrived, he moved back, melting away into the gathering pre-dawn gloom. Behind him, the ancient tree remained, standing guard over its countless secrets, its profound memories, and its silent, unmoving army of wolves, patiently awaiting a brand new day and a new visit from their old, devoted mentor. The cold mountain wind continued its eternal, haunting song, carrying his footsteps further and further away, whispering tales that perhaps no one but he remembered anymore. But he remembered, and in that vast and different world, that was truly enough, for him and for them. If this deep dive into memory, legacy, and the quiet burden of guardianship resonated with you, even just a little, then please, take a moment, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments below. What does memory mean to you? And definitely subscribe if you want more of these rich, often overlooked stories from the lore you absolutely love. Your continued support truly helps us keep these vital tales alive. Have you ever just stopped for a second and truly wondered, can you actually find peace, genuine peace, right there in the eye of the storm? Like, what does real silence even mean when your entire world is constant danger, always on the edge of a blade? Well, for Ciri, our young lioness, the girl who was once a princess but now runs with the rats, that precise quiet moment, it actually happened. Out there, in the dust and the dirt, under this incredible, endless blanket of stars. Imagine this for a moment. Night had settled, deep and heavy, almost like a thick velvet curtain had just been drawn over their camp. All around her, sprawled out on the ground, the rest of the rats were completely out cold. Gisela, Iskra, Rieflin, Missile, Kaylee. You could hear their heavy, steady breathing, mixing with the soft, almost hypnotic crackle of the campfire. That little fire, it was their only real source of light and warmth in that vast open darkness. The flames danced, throwing these wild, shifting shadows across their faces, hiding all the exhaustion, the old scars, those tough, unyielding expressions they wore all day. Right now, though, they were just sleeping people, vulnerable, almost innocent in that deep, complete surrender to the night. Ciri, she wasn't just sitting there, though, was she? She was cross-legged by the fire, her eyes constantly scanning the perimeter. It was her watch. Her turn to make absolutely sure no one slipped in unnoticed, that this fragile calm of the night, it stayed just that, calm. Her gaze, it swept over the dark silhouettes of the trees, tracing the vague outlines of hills way off in the distance. Every single rustle, every tiny twig snap, made her muscles tighten inside, but outwardly, she remained absolutely motionless, like a predator, just perfectly blended into her surroundings, waiting. This, you see, this was part of her new life. This was her new instinct. In Ciri's hand, she held her blade, not the fancy one she used to carry back in the day, but the one that had been her loyal, silent partner through countless fights. With this almost ritualistic precision, she'd wipe it down with a soft cloth, making sure to get rid of even the tiniest speck of dirt, any hint of blood, any potential rust. The polished steel would gleam in the campfire light, catching those miniature tongues of flame, like tiny stars somehow trapped in metal. Every single movement she made was just honed to perfection, completely automatic. And it was calming. All that repetition, focusing on a task that demanded her full attention, but didn't involve any of her emotions. It was a kind of meditation, really, a way to quiet all that constant noise that so often plagued her mind. From where their horses were tied, there were these quiet, barely perceptible sounds. A soft snort, the gentle jingle of bridles, the muffled thud of a hoof. The horses, they were sleeping too, or just dozing, lost in their own world of animal instincts. They were truly faithful companions, as vital as their blades, as integral as the gang itself. Do you ever wonder if Ciri felt a real attachment to them? These animals who didn't judge, didn't demand anything, just followed, carrying them across endless stretches of land. Maybe. In this rare moment of peace, even that was a piece of her universe. Sometimes, she'd just lift her head and look up at the sky. This boundless, black canvas, absolutely studded with diamond stars. Each constellation seemed to shine brighter than you could ever imagine. Out here, far, far away from all the cities, from all the human hustle and that endless pretense, the stars were true guides, silent witnesses to thousands of similar nights that had passed before her, and, well, thousands yet to come. Beneath this incredible sky, Ciri could feel like this tiny grain of sand, yet at the very same time, she was part of something so much larger, something truly eternal. Her thoughts seemed to just float as freely as the campfire smoke, dissolving into the cool night air. She thought about the past, those days in Cintra, the Grand Castle, Geralt, Yennefer. These memories, they were like ghosts, sometimes so clear, sometimes vague, bringing this dull ache with their unattainability. Yet, at the same time, they gave her strength. Was she still Cirilla of Cintra? Or was she Ciri, a member of the Rats gang? The lines, they just blurred, merging, creating this new person that was somehow both. She listened to her own breathing, even, calm. Her heartbeat with a steady rhythm, not betraying any of that frantic anxiety that often accompanied her during the day. It was a minute of silent introspection, a truly rare gift that life didn't often offer her. Here, by the campfire, under those countless stars, surrounded by her sleeping companions, whom she, despite everything, considered her new family, she could actually afford to just be Ciri, not a princess, not a fugitive, not a warrior, but simply herself, a person searching for her place in this absolutely mad world. Could she be happy here, Honestly, that's such a complex question. Happiness, as she knew, was fleeting. It wasn't that pure joy children feel, but something deeper, far more intricate. Maybe it was just acceptance. Acceptance of who she was right now, and exactly where fate had dragged her. She had learned to survive, learned to be tough, learned to take what she needed and not regret it. But deep inside, beneath all that armor she'd built up, there was still that same young girl who once dreamed of knights and grand adventures, and who still longed for simple human warmth. This moment, though, it was pure, untouched by anything. No fear of tomorrow, no regrets about yesterday, just here and now. The comforting crackle of the logs, the soft whisper of the wind through the treetops, the gentle breathing of sleeping bodies. She felt the fire's warmth on her skin, that slight chill of the night air just seeping through her clothes. Every nerve was taut, but not from fear, from concentration. It was an alertness that had just become second nature, an instinct for self-preservation, honed to its absolute limit. Time, it just passed. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, but relentlessly. The stars shifted in the sky, silently signaling the approach of dawn, or at least the moment when the next watchman would come to relieve her. She didn't feel tired, just this heightened awareness of literally everything around her. This night, it wasn't just a watch for her. It was a lesson, a powerful lesson that even in life's very darkest corners, you can still find tiny sparks of light, these quiet moments of tranquility that allow your soul to truly rest, to gather its strength, and then to move forward again. The blade, it was flawless now, reflecting the stars and the flames like a perfect mirror. Ciri slowly sheathed it. Tomorrow, it would be in action again, stained with blood again, a stark continuation of her will again. But right now, it was clean, just like this moment. Clean, like her thoughts. She stretched out slightly, easing those stiff muscles. Her legs were a bit cold from the night dew, but that felt familiar. Soon, one of the rats would stir, wake up, probably yawn, and come over to relieve her. And then, this incredibly fragile moment of peace, it would just vanish, giving way to the hustle and bustle of a brand new day. New dangers, new decisions. But that memory, though, it would remain, like a small secret, like a precious gem she could pull out from her mind at any moment, just to feel that silence again, that deep concentration, that powerful sense of being in a world where there really seemed to be no place for peace. This night by the fire, this moment of quiet, it wasn't just a rest for Ciri. It was a confirmation that even amongst the rats, amidst all that chaos, she could still find herself, her center, her sanctuary. And that, perhaps, was the most important discovery of all. She looked at the fire one last time, watching how the embers glowed, casting their final flickers of light. Then her gaze lifted back to the stars. They were still shining, billions of distant suns, silently watching her, watching all of us. And in that profound silence, Ciri finally found her own answer to the question of peace. It doesn't come from the outside, you see. It's born within. Even when the storm rages all around you, it's born in those moments of silent introspection, under the stars, by the fire, away from the world's noise, when the only witnesses to your thoughts are the night itself and that endless, majestic sky. And that, for her, that was enough. It was more than enough. She slowly rose, ready to pass the watch, ready for a new day, knowing that no matter what came, she would always have this inner corner of peace, this small fire that burns only for her. If you found this glimpse into Ciri's world as captivating as I did, please consider giving this video a like, share it with your friends, and definitely subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the fascinating lives of our favorite characters. Let me know in the comments below what other moments of quiet strength you found hidden in chaotic stories. Ever stop to think what happens when a bard, especially one like me, Jaskier, who absolutely thrives on the sound of his own voice, suddenly just stops talking? I mean, my voice usually fills every tavern, every courtyard, every ear within a mile. But then, there are these moments, out on the open road, when all that ringing, that lovely sound, gives way to something else entirely. And honestly, I swear by all the muses, sometimes that stillness, that quiet whisper of the world, when it's just me, my horse, and the endless track stretching out, well, that's the most beautiful sound of all. Like right now, for instance. The sun, it's just kind of lazily easing itself over the horizon, painting these sprawling Velenian fields in a fantastic golden pink. Air's still got that morning bite, a real crispness to it, but you can feel that hint of warmth already promising a gorgeous day. And my steed? No, I don't give her a flowery name. Unlike some people I know, you know who I'm talking about. She's just rhythmically tapping her hooves on the packed earth. Thump, 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 thump. It's not just a sound, really. It becomes your own personal heartbeat, your metronome for the morning. It settles something deep inside, lets your mind just drift, totally free, far from all the usual nonsense. Then there's the saddle, that little creak. It's so faint, sometimes you almost miss it, but it's there, a constant companion, echoing my own sway as we move. This isn't the kind of tune you can play on a lute. Oh no. This is the raw, unadulterated symphony of solitude and the open road. Every single note in this composition? It's the sigh of the wind through ancient pine tops, the whisper of dry leaves crunching under hooves, maybe the haunting call of some bird I don't even recognize. And when we really get into a forest, that's when you hear it. The wind literally playing. The trees plucking their very crowns like strings on some gargantuan, primeval instrument. And that's when it happens. Lines, verses, just bloom in my mind. Out of nowhere, light as a feather. Perfect. My trusty little notebook. You see, it's always with me. Thin, soft leather binding, practically glued to my side. It's more than just a book. It's my confidant, a silent witness to every one of my little epiphanies. The second inspiration hits, that sudden rush. I'm pulling it out, sometimes mid-stride, scribbling down quick, hurried notes. Words that just might, mind you, become the cornerstone of some grand ballad later. Or maybe they'll just stay as these enigmatic lines, understood only by me. But in that very moment, out here in the quiet, they feel absolutely, utterly perfect. Today's path, it's taking me from this tiny little village, where I truly graced them with my presence last night, towards another, larger city. Oxenfurt, I believe, or maybe not. Doesn't actually matter much, does it? The journey itself is the real story. Now, it's not always sunshine and daisies out here, I promise you that. But it's not some endless gauntlet of monsters either. It's just a path. Every so often, a carter will rumble by, maybe give you a gruff nod. Or you might cross paths with a lone traveler who, spotting my lute, will offer a polite smile, or, more likely, beg for a song. And I, naturally, am always ready to oblige. But mostly, it's just silence. Just me, And the road, the landscape, it shifts, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but constantly. Started with those vast, wide fields, already stripped bare, readying themselves for winter's embrace. Then, gradually, these gentle hills appear, dotted with sparse, skeletal bushes, all their leaves long gone. Every now and then, you'll catch a glimpse of dark, imposing islands of pine forest, standing defiant. And the air, oh, the air carries this distinct, earthy scent. Damp leaves, wet soil. It's a special kind of smell, truly. It's the scent of autumn, of saying goodbye. Yes, but also, paradoxically, of hopeful anticipation for what's next. I just breathe it in, deeply, letting it fill my lungs. And it brings this profound sense of peace that, let's be honest, I rarely find in the delightful chaos of city life. And the thoughts that surface in these quiet moments, they're nothing like the fleeting ideas that buzz around in my head in a crowded, noisy tavern. These are deeper, somehow, calmer, less, full of jaskier, if you catch my drift. I find myself pondering friends I haven't heard from in ages, or, well, someone I might never actually see again. And then, inevitably, it turns to the grand purpose of my very existence. Why do I wander? Why truly do I sing? Is it merely to amuse? To enlighten, perhaps? Or is it, at its core, just to sprinkle a tiny bit of beauty into this world, which, I must confess, can often seem rather bleak? As the sun climbs higher, its gentle rays start to really warm my back. I undo a few buttons on my collar, letting that lovely cool morning air get right in. That feeling, you know, the warm sun, a delicate breeze dancing on your skin. That's freedom, pure and unadulterated. You can't buy it, not with all the gold in the kingdoms, and you certainly can't trade it for any amount of thunderous applause. In these precious moments, I'm not Jaskier, the grand bard, the celebrated poet. I'm just a man on a horse, riding down a road, simply observing this world that I, quite marvelously, happen to be a part of. My horse, clever thing she is, somehow just knows when it's time for a breather. She slows her pace, then just stops, right by a tiny bubbling stream. The water's so clear, it just gurgles quietly over the stones, like a secret conversation. I slide off her back, let her get her fill, then kneel myself to splash some of that glorious cold water on my face. Oh, that sharp jolt. It's like a slap from destiny, waking you up, chasing away the very last traces of morning haze. Then, from my saddlebag, a humble crust of bread, a wedge of cheese. It's the simplest of meals, honestly. But out here, under this vast open sky, with the trees just whispering their ancient tales all around me, it tastes like the most magnificent feast you can imagine. I just sit there, by the stream, really listening to its gentle murmur. It's as if, in these precise moments, the most perfect, most melodious verses just emerge. They're not forced, not strained. They simply flow, like the water itself, easily, effortlessly. You don't have to wrestle them into existence. You just catch them, light as butterflies, as they flit by. I pull out my notebook. Yes, but this time, surprisingly, I don't actually write anything. I just gaze at those pristine pages, almost as if they already hold all the words I'll one day put down. Maybe it'll be about this very stream, its ceaseless journey, how it, much like myself, is always flowing somewhere, restless, always moving. After a brief, blissful respite, we're back on the move. The sun's already high, directly overhead, shrinking all the shadows to mere puddles. And the road, well, it's starting to hum with life now. More travelers, more creaking carts. The whole world around me seems to be shaking off its morning sluggishness. And just like that, I feel it again. That sense of being a part of everything, not just some aloof observer. My lute, it swings gently on my back, a constant comforting reminder of my true calling, my very purpose. It's just waiting for its moment, waiting for me to pluck it from its rest and fill the very air with melody once more. But for now, silence. Or rather, that ongoing symphony of the road I mentioned. The steady, rhythmic thud-thud of hooves, that familiar creak of the saddle, the whisper of the wind. These sounds, repetitive, almost maddeningly so, they don't annoy. No, they hypnotize. They pull you into this almost dreamlike state where time itself seems to bend, to stretch, to flow differently. Every single moment suddenly bursts with meaning, and every fleeting observation transforms into a potential line of poetry. You just watch the trees whiz by, see the clouds lazily drifting across the vast expanse of the sky. All of it, every single bit, is raw inspiration. It's all part of the grand, sprawling story I am destined to tell the world. And sometimes, quite unexpectedly, I find myself thinking I actually enjoy this solitude. It's a rather curious confession, isn't it? For a man whose very livelihood, whose entire being, relies utterly on applause, on the clamor of an adoring crowd. But in these quiet hours, when there's absolutely no need to play a part, when no one's waiting for a clever quip or a perfectly timed joke, I can just be, simply observe, just breathe. And these moments, my friends, these are the most priceless. They replenish me. They infuse me with the vigor for new performances, for new songs. They permit me, Jaskier, to be far more than just a jester or a mere entertainer. They allow me to be an artist, one who draws his very essence, his ideas, from the deepest heart of the world itself. Now, the sun's beginning its glorious descent in the west, painting the entire sky in these unbelievable hues of blazing orange and rich purple. The road ahead, it looks endless, doesn't it? But I know better. Somewhere just around that next bend, there's a new city waiting. New faces. A brand new audience eager for my brilliance. My horse, sensing the stables, picks up her pace, and honestly, so do I. A surge of energy, a thrumming anticipation for a hot meal, a proper tankard of ale, and yes, the glorious chance to finally pick up my lute again. But before I reach that grand finale for the day, I make one last entry in my little notebook. Just a few lines, perhaps, about the fleeting, breathtaking beauty of that sunset. About how another day slips away, giving way to the velvet embrace of night, but not without leaving its indelible mark upon the soul. And in these moments, it becomes crystal clear to me. It's precisely these days, these solitary journeys across the sweeping Velenian roads, that truly sculpt me into the poet I am. They lend me a voice when I choose to be silent. They fill me, absolutely brimming, with the very stories I then weave and share with the entire world. And for that, I am profoundly grateful. Grateful for every rhythmic thud of hooves, for every gentle creak of the saddle, for every single rustle of the wind that harmonizes in my own personal, ongoing road symphony. This, my friends, this is the path, and it is, without a shadow of a doubt, utterly, beautifully magnificent. So, if you enjoyed this rather personal peek into a bard's quieter, more reflective moments, which, let's be honest, are few and far between, then do me a favor. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel right now. Give this video a grand, resounding like, won't you? And in the comments down below, tell me, what are the sounds, the very noises, that you find most inspiring? I'm genuinely curious.